Okay, we are taking a look at Inside Job. I'll drop a link in chat there, and I'm joined by FeatureKreep. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's actually 11 p.m. at where I am right now.
Okay,
So
wow.
forgive me if I sound a little low on energy.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, yeah, it's just difference in time zones. Thank you for making the time to join me on the stream, though. And yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with the first question while I get through the intro to the game here. Can you talk a little bit about your background in game development?
My background. I always dread this question because I don't really know what to say. I mean, like, there isn't anything interesting about my background. I'm just a solo game developer. I was interested in games since I was, I don't know, like maybe 6, 7 years old. When I got my first console, which was Nintendo Famicom. Although back in my days, we used to call it Denki because we actually got I believe it was a Taiwanese knockoff of the Famicom. So it was like a bootlegged copy, and it was called Denki. Ever since then, I was really fascinated with games. Because unlike books or movies or cartoons, you got this sense of participation. Uh, you were the hero in this journey. You were the one who made all the choices, and it was really interesting to me, even if as a kid I didn't really understand it on maybe like this philosophical level. Um, so at some point, I started participating in game jams. First, it was with uh, a friend because at the time I didn't know anything about programming. I still don't, I would say, because I use special game development software. I mainly use Construct. So pretty much all of the games that you see on my itch.io page are are made with Construct. And I make all of my art. I make all the animations. I make levels, characters, basically everything except for music because I really suck at music.
Gotcha. So everything we're seeing here, that's I usually ask like what was your role in this project, but I know for a fact that you were the solo developer.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and if you're worried about not having an interesting answer, I'd say that was a plenty interesting answer to the question about your background. So all good there.
There you go.
So yeah, can you talk a little bit about the inspiration behind this project?
Inspiration. Well, this isn't my first rodeo, so to speak. So I did participate in GMTK game jams before. I think it was my fourth time overall. Um, and actually, at the time the theme was announced, I was at the nightclub, so everyone around me was dancing, but I was just checking my phone, like, come on, is it time yet? Is it time yet? And then I saw the theme, and uh, as I was continuing to enjoy my time with my friends and dancing, some part of my brain was desperately trying to come up with uh, some interpretation of this theme. And on the way back home in taxi, I came up with some ideas. So, like many game devs, I have a lot of prototypes, and one of the prototypes was this weird blend of chess and XCOM, and I was really looking forward to maybe continuing that. So I told myself, oh, if the theme is going to be relevant enough, maybe I could, work on this prototype a little bit more. So unfortunately, that wasn't the case, but that still kept me going. And one of the ideas that I came up with was this chess game where you were actually forced to sacrifice your own figures and sort of bait your opponent into putting you into checkmate. I thought that was kind of interesting, but at the same time, technically, it would be, well, not technically, I mean, in terms of puzzles themselves, that would be maybe too too hard for me because I'm not that big of a chess guy. I'm more of an amateur. So I tried something else. I told myself, oh, what about tower defense? But instead of towers, maybe you get crops, and you tend to this garden, and some maggots, flies, and worms attack your crops. But at the same time, crops also serve as these weapons. So, for example, onions would cry, and their tears would turn into like those bullets, sort of like in Binding of Isaac. This also was maybe a bit too complex for 48 hours. So I decided, okay, tower defense is fine, but maybe I should do it a bit simpler. And the theme was roles reversed, so naturally, if you reverse the theme, what you get is tower offense instead of tower defense. And there you go.
Yeah, I like the fact that there. When I've played tower defense games before, my main complaint is usually that there's not enough for the player to do. Like, I see that there's an option to speed the game up, but I haven't clicked on it because I've got a character control. I've got something to like move around the battlefield and actually like act on things as my guys are moving around.
Yeah, actually, this speed up button was, I think, the very first feature that I added to the project. So there was nothing, there was no gameplay, but there was this speed up button for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Like most tower defense games, a speed up button is very useful, and like a lot of people would want to have that in the game. So I definitely can see why it would be a good thing to include. But if I think you've also succeeded as a designer when you're inherently saying like, or rather, let me rephrase that. You've kind of failed as a designer when you need to include hey, the game is so slow that it's boring, let me speed it up.
So I failed successfully, yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is that I do not need to use that button, so
yeah.
I think the game's engaging enough without it.
I mean, I sure as hell needed this button because all of those levels that we've been playing, I've played them over and over and over again just to iron out all the kinks, and it was just so annoying. It's always so annoying to go through the same levels because I know how to solve them. I'm not saying like they're so deep with the puzzle elements, but still, I know how to do it, and it's trivial to me as a game designer. But I have to test them necessarily over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, like having development tools that let you skip levels, like that absolutely makes sense. I'm not trying to say that that's not a important component of the development process, but I guess it's sort of in line with the mentality of the designer should never be having more fun than the player, and part and parcel with that is you as the designer testing your own levels shouldn't be miserable because if you're not having fun playing your own game, then maybe something's wrong.
Oh yeah, for sure, I agree there, at the very least.
So,
but this is actually, I believe, the last level. So it's a very short game, and that's one of my problems because at the very beginning I told myself, okay, I'm gonna make 12 levels. But what I found during my numerous participations in game jams is that usually the very first day is like it goes really well. It's almost deceptively easy. So you think that you got so many things done. You lie down in bed thinking of how awesome your time management is, and then you wake up and nothing is working. 90% of art is missing. There are no sounds, no levels, no dialogue. There's not even a title screen, and you lose like one more hour on panic attacks, and you just start cutting out everything.
Yeah, so better to sort of like build up from a small, like this way you know that players are going to see the entirety of the content in the game.
Yeah, for sure. So, for instance, you can see that you have three different minions to choose from and one
Mhm.
ability. So, initially, I planned, I believe there were four different minions and two abilities. Uh, and even enemy towers, there was quite a lot of diversity initially. Um, so I planned a lot of things, and that's the thing about game jams. You plan a lot in the beginning. You try to envision this grand game that everyone's going to enjoy, but at the end you realize that, oh no, the 48 hours is just nothing. Especially towards the end, it's going to run past you like a train.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very strict timeline, which like I do understand that for some people it's kind of like they can only dedicate one weekend, and I enjoy longer game jams, but then um, like I think a week or rather I liked how Vimlark created his jam where it spanned over 2 weekends. Like it was a 10-day game jam, so it started at the beginning of one weekend and then ended on the end of the next weekend. So that if you have time to work on it during the week, that's great. But if you don't, you can just spend a little time on the weekend. Like um, you can spend only the weekends if that's all the time you have that's free. Like which is the reality for most people who have day jobs.
Oh yeah, I agree. And especially with game jams that span for a week or more.
Yeah.
What I see as a benefit is that when I'm at the office working, my brain just sort of uh, goes to some other dimension, and as I'm typing out some, I don't know, like an article, a document, whatever, I still process things, and I can come up with some unusual ideas, or maybe I feedback about my levels or characters or art. And when I get back home, I almost always have something to work on, something concrete.
Nice. Yeah, I think that it really depends on like what kind of job you have, right? Because some jobs are very demanding of your mental focus, but there's I think it was actually when I was watching a series of lectures by Brandon Sanderson, just talking about if you really want to make it as a writer, but you can't like financially, you have to be responsible and you have to like earn an income. There's no shame in just taking a sort of simple labor job that, like, if you're just like sweeping up a store or operating some simple machinery, you can sort of let your mind wander and like think through these concepts and have that exactly the experience you're describing, where you come back at the end of the day and you've got the idea in your head and you know what you've already kind of thought it through, so that even if you don't have much time at the end of the day to work on something, you can kind of you've done a lot of the difficult like thinking through it part.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Dr. Tronic saying, my favorite jam was the Mizzzz jam. It's a 48-hour jam, but you have 2 weeks to work on the 48 hours. Yeah, I like the idea because that way it's sort of balanced, I guess, as it were, to make sure that no one is spending more or less than the 48 hours. It becomes difficult to enforce that, though, so I'm wondering how they did that. And also, hello, Derpy Ash. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing? But yeah, so we can move on to our next question then, which is, um, did I ask already about what the development process was like? We were sort of discussing that.
Um, Development process. I mean, I sort of covered maybe some of the minor problems that I ran into,
Mhm.
but I mean, as I mentioned, I mainly use Construct
Yeah,
for almost all of my games. Um, so right away, I decided that I'm not actually going to dedicate too much time to the development of this game, because last time that I was at the GMTK Game Jam, I actually took it super seriously and I was burnt out at the end. And it was like a complete nightmare. If anyone in the chat has been burnt out before, like it's not a nice thing to deal with because you're just low on energy for weeks. You're so apathetic. You don't know what to do, uh, and you uh, can't do anything. Like even at work, I was maybe at like quarter my usual capacity. So anyway, I told myself like I'm gonna take it easy. I even told my wife that we have a kid, so I told her like I volunteer to wake up earlier with her. I'm just gonna take care of her, like feed her, play with her. You can sleep however many hours you want. So I maybe started working on this game at um, like 10 a.m., something like that, and still I found time to take a walk with my daughter, play with her, um, go shopping. So I decided um, that I don't have to push myself too hard because there's nothing really to prove. Uh, I have I've been to many game jams, and of course there's always this competitive feeling like, oh, I gotta prove that I'm the best, that my game ideas are so ingenious. But at the end of the day, like it's all for fun. It should be for fun, and the only thing, the only person you're proving anything to is yourself, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a much better attitude. Like it's come up on the channel a few times about like the different motivations you can have for entering into a game jam, and also hello Bart Moon. With God as my witness, your hello was like buried among all the hellos from Derpy Ash. Your username and the color of your username was almost the exact same. So I'm sorry I did not notice that it was a different that you had joined the stream. But yes, welcome. How are you doing? But yeah, so in terms of the different motivations, I think like first and foremost, you should be making something that you are happy with. I've often found game jams where I didn't think the theme was interesting enough. It's like, well, I could force myself to participate in this, but what's the point? Like, I should make something that I think is going to be fun, that I'm going to have fun making. And then if other people happen to like it as well, that's a bonus. But it's, you really only have control of your own experience at the end of the day. And yeah, like
I
why should
mean,
I? Yeah,
that's basically my experience as well, because for every game jam that I participated in, there are maybe three that I signed up for, and at some point I just realized that, oh, this isn't working. This isn't fun for me. Maybe the theme is too restrictive, or maybe it's just uh, too open. Because this is a problem as well. If it's too if it's too open to interpretations, then you're you experience this paralysis of choice. Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
should I do this or that? Um, yeah, there are a lot of game jams that I basically left because it wasn't doing anything for me.
Yeah, and I think it's a good call. Like as much as game jams are fun to participate, it's just you can burn yourself out. Like as you directly experienced, you can end up making something that you aren't happy with. You can yeah experience the opposite of like the paralysis of choice. Like there's you really I don't know how many game jams have you participated in at this point.
Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, more than a dozen, for sure.
Yeah. Wow, I'm just scrolling through your itch.io page here, which I will drop a link to that in chat. Um,
I mean,
annual
that's
mental
not
breakdown
all of
jam.
my
Yeah.
games. That's only
Okay.
like select few.
Wow. Okay. So, of the games that are on here, are you just sort of like featuring your best ones, or?
I would say my best ones would probably be Flip Flop, um, Looper, and Lost in Translation.
And flip flop back here. I like that you've always taken the time to make a nice presentation on the itch.io page itself. Is that something you do like after the submission period, or?
Um, I started doing this for I think flip flop was the first time that I actually did this. So I read like through a couple of tutorials on H.io on how to do it. And then I realized that, oh, presentation actually matters because if your game page is just going to be blank, then it doesn't really communicate anything about you, about your game, about your idea. So there's nothing to hook a player with.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, but to address your question, I usually design them. It's either by the end of the game jam period or right after.
Yeah,
For
because
example,
it's yeah.
for Inside Job, it was right after. I think it was the same day or maybe the next morning.
Yeah,
I
because the
mean,
priority is
it's not
just
too hard.
yeah, but it's the extra level of presentation that I think everyone can appreciate, and it, as you said, it looks nice, and it just sort of, I guess it's sort of like part of showing that you care, that you're willing to put in that extra effort to make the presentation look nice, because it it doesn't have to be like a full like ton of gifs or anything crazy. Like it's just a little bit of customization. Like I for my jam project, I had already made this other game. Like my jam game Goat Boss was a sort of sequel to this one, so I just copied the styling over, and I think that this is more than the absolute minimum effort, but having the like custom frame along the edge is really nice. Having the like images embedded in the actual page itself, spending a little bit of time on like centering the text here, just yeah, this this is what it looks like when someone has a better aesthetic sense, knows what they're doing, actually makes a custom page.
And if you actually go through the game pages that I mentioned before, you can see that they basically follow the same template.
Yeah.
And if you do it once, you can do it the next time, and the next time, and it's going to get easier and easier. So with Inside Job, I think it took me 15 minutes tops to
Mm-hmm.
just do something from scratch. Well, here
Yeah.
I went the extra mile of including the GIFs for controls.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just closed the page as you were mentioning it. But for flip flop here, this one, these guys, and yeah, these look fantastic. Like there's, it's nice if you can get that information into the game itself, but for a lack of that, having these on the screen, I mean, it makes it super clear what does what. Oh yeah, and then as Dr. Tronic is saying, you can just design the page in Photoshop, export it as a big image, and it takes up the main body of the site. Absolutely, that's an option as well. But yeah, you're talking about like using templates. I mean, if you if I click through the various um, games that I've made, not that one, the last couple game jams that I've made, it's pretty obvious that I am just sort of using like the same template, but I just didn't spend as much time
Mhm.
making the template look nice. I usually just try to have the screenshots along the right side of the screen, try to have the clear headers um, that sort of describe the controls and whatnot. And my goal is to not have to spend that much time on it per the overall jam. But
Yeah, but
yeah.
that's still something that a lot of creators on H.io are missing. Because when I'm done making my project for the game jam,
Mhm.
I and many others start playing the game of other participants, and often I see either a blank page or a page that is that doesn't really have any relevant information like controls, uh, some brief blurb about the game or anything like that. And I really feel like a lot of people are doing themselves a disservice because you spend 48 hours making this game. You can spend another hour, like 2 hours tops, just to make it super presentable.
Yeah, it's like bonus time that you have after the jam's already over to, because you can't edit the save file anymore, but at the very least, or not the save file, but the uploaded file
Yeah,
anymore. That's
the
locked, at
project
least in
file.
the GMTK jam, it's locked. But you do have that time to invest in making the page look nicer, and yeah, so I do think it makes sense to spend the time to make it look nice. Um, As for inside job, then, what do you think was the most difficult problem that you encountered in your time making the game, and how did you end up solving it?
Um, well, I mentioned recently on Twitter, it was sort of like a playful jab meant for myself and other solo game developers. So I posted this tweet, or I don't know, are they called tweets anymore? Maybe it's like
If let's pretend
tweets.
that they are, because I
Whatever, yeah.
hate the
Yeah. So my tweet said something like, my indie game studio has an art director, a level designer, a lead programmer, and a scriptwriter. But the bad news is they're all me. And being a solo game developer is like, it can be a blessing, but a lot of times it's a curse. Uh, it does give you like complete freedom to do whatever you want, but it can be very deceiving because when you don't get any second opinion, you can get stuck in a rut. You can get stuck with a bad idea or a bad implementation. It has happened to me a lot, really a lot, especially when I just started with game jams, because I would make something and not realize that it was unplayable, or there were like too many kinks that I didn't iron out. So that's one problem, of course, that I do it on my own. Another, I would say, more tangible problem that I encountered maybe an hour before the deadline is that I uploaded my project and it just wouldn't start. Or just like black screen.
oh yeah.
Uh, I think I was completely drenched in sweat. I was panicking, but thankfully I resolved it in maybe 10 minutes tops.
God.
Still don't know what the problem was, but I don't care at this point.
Yeah, that happened to me, not this past year, but the one before when I was working on this game with my friend. Like it was all working just fine, and then the game would like hard freeze. It was hitting some infinite loop somewhere, and I was like digging through it, everything I could do. I imported it from Game Maker Studio 1 into Game Maker Studio 2, and that like seemingly solved the problem, but it was still happening sometimes, and it's just like it doesn't happen in the desktop version. So I kind of, but I also know that if you don't have a web version of your game, then a lot of people won't play it. So I was like,
Yeah.
do I leave the web version up knowing that people are going to play it and then encounter the crash, or do I like just leave the download version because I know that's going to work better? And yeah, it was just I know exactly that sort of uncomfortable feeling of, oh god, the game I've spent 26 hours working on isn't working.
Yeah. Um, and in general, like, I had fun doing this game, but at the same time, I wasn't really proud of the concept because it's, to be honest, like it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost simplistic. So a lot of other people came up with the same basic concept, like a reverse tower defense. I believe it's the most popular keyword
Mm-hmm.
during this game jam. So yeah, there were a lot of similar projects, and the only things I had that stood out in my project was maybe art, or rather art direction, and I guess quote unquote story with this king and
Mm-hmm.
this whole conspiracy plot, whatever. But now I can see in my analytics that this is my most popular game on H.io, and it is it is pleasant to realize that it hasn't been for nothing. But at the same time, I know that some of my other games are maybe a bit more deserving of this attention.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. There's something to be said about a simple concept that is easy for people to grasp and then just executing on it really well. I think the presentation especially is going to help something that is a simple idea punch way above its weight class. Like, there are all kinds of mechanically interesting games that are out there that, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Like, is it a question of how much fun is the game to play versus how much fun was it to design? Like, the player should always be having more fun than the developer. And I don't want to say that those other games that you made aren't fun or aren't deserving of more attention, but it's just sometimes it's the most simple ideas that just grab people's attention because they look at it and they can immediately understand it. And then having just that little twist, it's like, oh, it's a tower defense, but you place the enemies. And while you said there are plenty of people who did it during this game jam, like a lot of people chose to make that pursue that idea. How many people had art that looked like this, and how many people had a character that you could like actually move around in? Like, I know I've seen other tower defense games in this jam that are reverse tower defense, but they don't feel as active as this one because you don't you do just sort of like assign the minions and then sort of watch them move through, and it kind of becomes the main problem that I have with tower defense. So I think that there were just a lot of different factors that came together to make this, I don't know, maybe more special than you're giving it credit for. So don't sell yourself short.
Right. Yeah, it all sounds like first world problems. Like, oh no, my game is too popular. I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard, but you just can't help feeling things sometimes, you know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've definitely been in those situations where it's like, oh, I spent a lot of time writing a story or a narrative that I thought I really wanted people to care about, and then no one actually played the game because, for whatever the reason might be. So
yeah, this has happened a lot. So I get a lot of questions from other people like, oh, how did you achieve this or that? Like, how do you make the such good games, whatever? And like there's no magical button that you can just push and become this 200 IQ Giga Chad who's churning out games like it's nothing. If people played my first game, they would honestly tell me that I suck and should probably, choose choose another profession, choose another hobby rather.
Yeah, that's internet for you. But I think that a lot of people can kind of get blindsided by just the sort of current status that you've been able to achieve and don't realize just how much time it took to get there. Like, it's a very long path to build up your skills as a game developer, your audience, your following as a Twitch streamer. Like, I know that I'm still very, very slowly like creeping my way up on that ladder, and I don't all I can say is thankfully I have a day job. I don't count on this to pay the bills, because so far I think Dr. Tronic, who's here in chat, is one of 2 people who consistently subscribes to me. And then my other subscriptions come from the various members of my family who have Amazon Prime, and I've convinced them to make Twitch Prime accounts to sub to me.
All right. Well, but you're streaming quite regularly, right?
Yeah, I mean, once a week, basically on Fridays. We've got a lot of these GMTK top 20 interviews lined up, so I hope that's interesting to folks. And anyway, let me turn this around and
That's
ask: Is there,
oh yeah.
yeah, is there anything that you would like to plug? Any like you mentioned some of these other games you want people to check out. What should people take a look at?
Ooh, well, as I said, I think Lost in Translation is probably my, I would say, best concept.
Hmm.
Flip Flop and Looper are also up there. And they're very short, like you can just dedicate 10 minutes tops for each of them.
Cool. Well, I've made sure to share the links to each of those in chat. And any social media channels? I know you're on Twitter. Do you want to drop your handle?
Ooh, my handle is FeatureKreep, but it's spelled with a K instead of a C, sort of like a Mortal Kombat language.
I'm going to keep calling this website Twitter until it dies a painful death.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the stream today. If you have any other game jam projects that you work on in future, it's something that I'm kind of limiting myself here by the number of interviews that I've got all lined up here. But I normally like to spend more time actually giving feedback on the project itself. But I especially like to do that when I know someone is interested in developing the game further. So if you have a project that is like in progress that you want to like have a design or development conversation about, I'd be happy to just like have you back on the stream and take a look at the game, chat about it, try it out, give you some first impressions and feedback.
I would actually really love that.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll be sometime soon. But until then, thank you so much for joining me on the stream. I know it must be getting quite late where you're at now.
Yeah, but it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me and have a nice day.
Yeah, likewise. Bye for now.
Bye.